Hello everybody, it's me, Farham. We're here with some Path of Exile 2, and today we're going to be talking about the 5 new Ascendancies that are coming in patch 0.2. Starting off with the Ritualist, we're going to go through all 5 of them in detail, talk about what they're going to bring to the table, maybe see if they would be good bases for builds we've done in patch 0.1, and yeah, just spend a little bit of time on each one. So Ritualist, first one up, we'll start off down the right-hand side. As you come up down the right here, you've got something that increases your physical damage and then grants you the skill Blood Boil. As far as I remember, that is a spell that causes the enemies to explode in bloody boils, I guess. At the point where you take them down doing small AoE, or reasonable AoE, sounds like it's probably going to be a physical-based skill then from the lead up to that. We've then got 2 skills coming up. We've got Ritual Sacrifice, which I believe allows you to sacrifice a rare monster and get one of their modifiers. But then that leads to As the Whispers Demand, which allows it to be cast on yourself to remove 20% maximum life and grant a random monster modifier. I believe these 2 things would be able to be used in conjunction. The remove 20% life sounds like it's going to be a aura type effect, like a blood magic type effect, where it will reserve that life, and therefore you'll be able to get 2 modifiers, one from the monster and one from yourself, is how I'm reading that anyway. I think it was interesting, they said in the when they were talking about this last night, that Ritual Sacrifice, you won't be able to find a monster and then sell that map to another player. Once you find the monster, it'll be tagged, so only you can do the Ritual Sacrifice on it. That's a bit disappointing. I think I probably spent a long time running around trying to find the monsters, and then when you get to do Ritual Sacrifice, I guess there's going to be no guarantee you get the modifier you want. As the Whispers Demand, I assume you can cycle that round on yourself until you get the modifier you want, but getting that build might be a bit tedious if you're going for 2 specific monster modifiers there. I really hope they change the ability to trade those. Next up, as we come around, we've got everyone's favourite items. We've got charms. You get an extra charm slot with 20% more charm charges gained. And then that moves into Mindful Actuaries, which means you can instead use 25% of your maximum mana to trigger charms with insufficient charges. That sounds like it could actually be annoying, especially if you were using things like the rare charm, where you'd just be proccing it all the time and then just be out of mana all the time. But yeah, I've not been a big fan of charms, so unless there's some significant notes as we go into 0.2 about changes to charms, particularly duration, I can't see these nodes being particularly powerful. Coming round to the short, stubby claw. This looks a bit like a claw to me. It's like a short, stubby claw bit. We're looking here at life recovery rate and then increased life recovery rate per 5% missing life. Important to note, that is life recovery and not life regeneration. So that's going to apply to everything. That's going to apply to your life leech, flasks, and it's probably actually going to be quite good at getting you. You know, if you're pressing your flask on low life, you're pretty much going to be doubling the effect of your flask. That is actually going to be quite powerful, I think. Next up, we come round to what I think is the most interesting part of the tree, but what sets this, to me, sets this tree apart as being more of a, probably not a league starter because of the amount of investment that would have to go in to make the most out of this part of the tree. As we come in, you have a choice of either reducing your resistances, spirit, or mana. Top of my head, I think resistances are going to be the easiest ones to offset. Spirit's always notoriously hard to get unless your build doesn't really need it. And reduced mana, yeah, I suppose you could probably handle the mana as well, depending on what your build does. But what that actually leads around to is an extra ring slot, which is particularly juicy. That then goes to 3% increased attributes, and then Mystic Attunement, which is 25% increased bonus gained from equipped rings and amulets. I'm assuming that's going to be additive with the effects of the Ingenuity belt. It would be really interesting to see what that does if you have an 80% Ingenuity with that, because then you're going to have 105% increased bonuses, which you start seeing extra skill slots from unset rings. However, to make the most of this, of course, you're going to need to be able to invest in good rings, good Ingenuity. Therefore, I think this is definitely more of a second character, third character type thing. But interesting part of the tree down here with the simple, right? Extra ring slots, extra attributes from your rings. Really simple to understand. Really, really powerful. I do like to see some things like that on the Ascendancies. I think the way it makes you... I think this is going to be a false choice here. I think everyone's just going to end up taking the elemental resistances. I'd like to see Looking forward to seeing if that's the case. I think the spirit and the mana just won't be touched here. The elemental resistances are so easy to offset. Anyway, yeah, the Ritualist looks quite good, but not seeing a lot of League start opportunity here. Maybe I'm missing something around how Blood Boil would work. It's a really quite a powerful spell that you get off your tree and it does good clear for AoE. Then all of a sudden you've got a good mapper. But we'd have to have a little bit more of a read when we get more information on exactly what these skills do. So that's the first of the Huntress's Ascendancies. Let's move on now and take a look at the Amazon. Huntress up next. So this is the tree that actually got me the most excited. And the reason being was it made me think that maybe this could be a League starter building around Ice Strike instead of the Monk base and get the same, if not more, power. There's definitely some interesting things on this tree, and we'll cover them as we go through. I will call them out. First off, I think this tree is the most well designed as well, because clearly this is a shield and this is a spear, and it's definitely a shield and a spear. She's supposed to use the shield and spear when in this tree. We're going to use a quartz. Of course we are. But anyway, let's start off again on the right hand side of the tree with the tank side. So first up, we've got up to Asmeri Brew, which makes life flasks recover mana and mana flasks recover life. That sounds really good. Like, your flasks basically double up as super flasks. Like, everything is a rejuvenation flask, and good times will be had by all. Sounds pretty simple. Pretty good way to boost defenses, especially early when you're reliant on those flasks. As we come around to the middle, we've got one of those nodes that can quite easily be offset by its gearing choices. It has a positive and a negative. The evasion rating from your equipped helmet, gloves, and boots will be doubled, but the evasion rating from your equipped body armor is halved. Well, that's not a problem if your body armor doesn't have any evasion rating on it. So I think there could be some good builds, and this could end up being a very powerful tank node, depending on your gearing choices with this character. Coming around to the final part of the buckler element. They are called bucklers, aren't they? Parry. Mystic Harvest. Life Leech recovers based on elemental damage as well as physical damage. This sounds crazy. Your Life Leech would be through the absolute roof, because the thing with the Ice Strike build, and having had a look at some of the spear gems that are available on PoE2 DB, they're all converting most of the fizz damage off to elementals. That's going to give you 100% leech based on your damage. And you know those damage numbers get high. You probably build something really, really tanky late game with Mystic Harvest. Coming around onto the spear, we'll start off with the bottom spur here. This is where I think there's some real flavour. The critical strike, so chance to hit with attacks can exceed 100%. Gain additional critical hit chance equal to 25% of excess critical chance to hit with attacks. So we know that about 1,900 accuracy rating is what you need to get to 100% hit chance. It's somewhere around there, 1619. I can't remember exactly the number, but it's less than 2. We've seen with accuracy stacking into things like the stat stacker that hitting 17, 18,000 accuracy rating with something like Bullseye is feasible. Now that doesn't show you a chance to hit, what your chance to hit would go over, so there's probably going to be diminishing returns. But this sounds like the sort of node that with the right build could push you to 100% crit without you having to take crit nodes, which would free up an awful lot on the tree. Why I think this might be a good base for an Ice Strike build, an Ice Strike Bell build. So very tempted to try, mostly because of this critical strike node. Going into as well, penetrate. Attacks using your weapons have added physical damage equal to 25% of the accuracy rating on the weapon. Get high accuracy rating quarterstaff, which is likely to be quite cheap. That could be quite good. Opens up some more options for how you can actually gear out on the weapons there. Moving on to the middle spoke, we've got these nodes sound brilliant as well, especially for bossing. Predatory Instinct, reveal weakness against rare and unique enemies. I assume that's going to be just applied to them from your presence, from them being in your presence. And then 50% more damage, important, that more word here again, against enemies with an open weakness. So if we're doing 50% multiplied damage on top of everything else, and then we've got maximum crit chance, you can see how this would start to scale and snowball into the end game very well. In for the kill, 20% increased movement speed while an enemy with open weakness is in your presence, and 40% increased skill speed. That's just great, right? If you're running against bosses and getting 40% increased attack speed, as well as 50% more damage, you're probably going to be laughing your way to the bank. This sounds like a great set of the tree. Looking at the top here, this seems like it's more specialized towards the new thrown element of the spear weapon. Grant skill infuse weapon. When you consume power, endurance, or frenzy charges, you either infuse your weapon with cold, fire, or lightning based on the charge type. Then we go up to infused avatar, which says there's a 50% chance for infusion to not be consumed when infusing a projectile. Presumably, we won't be able to just infuse melee strikes with this. It's only going to be the ranged components or projectile components. If it is just being able to infuse any projectile, though, that could be quite interesting. Could be some bow builds or similar with the Amazon. Definitely looks like a very exciting tree. Definitely looks like one that would fit the preferred playstyle I had from patch 0.1. Tempted, I think, to actually do a leak start with this one. Does look really, really good. So they're the two new ascendancies for the new class, the Huntress, but there are details on the 3 other ascendancies that are being released with 0.2. Let's jump into the next one of those now. Everyone's favourite punching bag, then the Warrior, getting a new ascendancy in 0.2. That is the Smith of Kitava. And actually, I think there's some pretty nice things on this tree. It's still not jumping out as, wow, the Warrior's fixed, the Warrior's going to be great. It's more like there's some interest on this tree for making something that might be functionally immortal. That's really what's jumping out here. So let's start off on the right-hand side and talk about all of these red skills here and how they work. So we've got Smith's Masterwork here. Interestingly, this passive skill is free to allocate, and allocating this unlocks all of these nodes under here, this sort of semicircle of options. Now, what do these nodes do? Well, they all work by applying a modifier to a normal piece of body armor. So normal is white. It can be corrupted. Leave. Yeah. Be corrupted. And it can have an implicit on it from its type. So you could get something like a steel, expert steel plate that has 2.5% base regen, then put another 5% regen on it. Also, there's no limit to how many of these we can apply, right? So we'll look at the rest of this tree, and then we'll come back to how some of this could work with it. Coming up the middle branch from the side of the forge here, we go up to Coal Stoker. Modifiers to fire resistance also grant cold and lightning resistance at 50% of the value. Sorry, my fat head's over some of this. And then modifiers to maximum fire resistance also grant maximum cold and lightning resistances. Now, it's very easy to get a lot of maximum fire resistance from the starting point of the Warrior on the tree. Really easy. And with what's available on the body armor, we could definitely get that max. Looking at the other skills here, we've got minions increase extra damage with grant skill manifest weapon, which is going to give you the ability to summon a weapon. We've got grant skill temper weapon with extra melee damage here. This is going to give you the ability to cause your weapon to cause fiery explosions on hits. And then we have increased fire damage and fire spell on hit, which is going to be an on-hit effect that casts a socketed fire spell. So you could build a battle mage type warrior, but okay, maybe. Anyway, how's this all going to work with Smith's Masterwork? So if we think about some of these things like tantalum alloy, body armor grants 75% to fire resistance. Well, if you've also got Coal Stoker, that's 150% resistance from one ascendancy point. You could grab that. Body armor regenerates 5% of life. Both Coal Stoker and Forged in Flame, and then still have 2 points left over to either do the DPS of your choice with Temper Weapon or Manifest Weapon, or just go all in on the body armor with another 2 more points, making this thing... Body armor grants 25% of physical damage from hits taken as fire damage, and 5% max fire resistance. You're going to be able to basically reduce physical damage you're taking down to next to nothing. You really would be able to make something quite tanky with this tree. I don't think it's going to be the fastest clearer, and I think that's where the Warrior's been let down all the way through 0.1, and I'm not... Unless Manifest Weapon or Temper Weapon can really start pumping some numbers out, which they might, I still think this is going to be very much a tanky tree, but this is the tankiest looking tree. This looks a lot tankier than Titan, and it is very much about what that Smith's Masterwork can do. When coupled with things like Coal Stoker and Forged in Flame, you can get 90% all res with 25% of fizz damage going to fire. You're basically going to be immortal, especially if you've got 7% life regen per second at least. It's probably going to be closer to 12 or 15% once you're finished with your tree. You're going to be functionally immortal. Could be some really cool builds coming out of this one. Next up, new Ascendancy class for the Mercenary. Do I think this is going to top Gemling as the most popular? Don't know. Depends if they nerf the shit out of Gemling or not, doesn't it? However, there's some interesting stuff here for the minion players, for minion builds, and indeed for totems. And I think this shows that we're probably going to get some new totem skills as we come in. So let's start at the bottom right of this tree and then go around. So coming in down this bottom spoke here, we have totem damage, increased totem damage by 20%, and then totems have more skill speed, but they only use skills when you fire an attack projectile. That could be quite interesting. I'm pretty sure there's going to be bow totems coming and melee totems coming based on the skills that are available on PoE2. If you can get very fast attack speed and the totems use skills when you fire an attack projectile, and they fire at your speed, your attack speed, you could end up with something quite brutal there. I think that it depends really on whether they can use skills regardless of their own internal cooldown and they just use them based on you attacking. Could be very interesting. Next up, we have minion damage and then Unleash Hell, which gives you the skill Supporting Fire. So Supporting Fire calls in a load of arrows from off screen. They showed it in the showcase of the video that they put out last night. And yeah, they basically just carpet an area and arrows. That's going to do more damage and have more accuracy rating based on your own personal stats. It depends on the cooldown. It doesn't say on the skill above as to how useful that's going to be. I would imagine if it's like a Hammer of the Gods on a 20-second cooldown, personally, I don't like skills like that, but I know that that has been quite popular. Could be quite powerful. We'll have to see how it scales. Next up, we've got Polish That Gear, which gives you extra armor as stun threshold and evasion rating as ailment threshold. That's going to be a good way to keep yourself ailment and stun immune, or more ailment and stun immune without necessarily using things like charms, which is quite nice. Next up, we go Stay Light, Use Cover, defend with 200% of armor. Enemies have an accuracy rating penalty against you based on distance, which is going to encourage you to keep your distance. If you're using a minion-based build, that's going to be pretty good. However, what I don't like about this one is the maximum evade chance is 50% and the maximum physical damage reduction is 50%, which is a 33% reduction on the max. Well, no. Your max physical reduction can be 90% and your maximum evade can be, I think, 95%. I believe. 90. Either way, that's a significant reduction. So unless that accuracy penalty is really, really nerfing enemy spellcasters and enemy rangers, that's feels kind of bad. As we come round to the left-hand side of the tree, we've got Suppressing Fire, projectile damage builds pin, and then right where we want them, pinned enemies cannot perform actions, so pin starts to work as freeze. That could make for a very powerful ranger build. Come around further, we've got Increased Spirit and Persistent buffs have 50% less reservation. This can make you into a bit of an aura bot by the sounds of it, very much a support class. Then coming round, we have Watch How I Do It. Allies in your presence gain added attack damage equal to 25% of your main hand weapon damage. This could be very, very powerful for minion builds. Yeah, for sure. And we can also place multiple banners. So you can build up all of your banners, then place them all for hard boss fights and hard elites. I think there's probably some very good minion builds here and an opportunity to see some ranged totems, which is very nice. I think of all the trees, this one looks like it's very much geared towards party play or minion builds, and minion builds are really good for League Start, and this might have a good place in League Start, but personally, well, Spectres are coming. Spectres are coming. Officer Spectre build? Commanding the ghosts of your enemies, you know, do a bit of a Aragorn. Call them in for their last charge. Could be alright. Might be something there, but definitely to be explored on a minion side of things, I think, looking at these Ascendancy nodes. The last, but by no means least, we have the Lich, the Ascendancy class coming new for the Witch. Starting again on the right-hand side. Coming down, it kind of looks like a spider web. So coming down this part of the spider's web, we have Soulless Form, 10% of damage taken bypasses energy shield. You have no inherent mana regeneration, but you regenerate mana equal to 6% of your maximum life per second. This could be quite good. You could just focus on no mana regen on the tree and stack high life and then start getting quite high mana regen. Although it does lead to something that I think is quite interesting. Eternal life. Your life cannot change while you have energy shield. So if you've got a bit of energy shield, no chaos damage would be able to hurt you, as far as I understand that. It's effectively going to be giving you CI from your Ascendancy tree. Also, if you played this into some sort of blood magic where even using support gems, you're going to get free casts on spells because your life can't change while you've got energy shield. So I think there could be some very interesting plays with that one. Some interesting combinations where you can start to get free spells or cheaper spells by speccing to certain parts of the skill tree. Definitely could be cool. It's also one of those things that could just get you dead. But we'll see. Next part of the spider's web, we've got energy shield if you've consumed a power charge recently, which leads on to non-channeling spells consume power charges to deal 25% more, so that's multiplicative damage. That's pretty nice. You could start seeing a Spark Lich build, maybe. There are some things here on this that actually do sound quite fun towards that. In the middle, we have an interesting node here. We have the Crystalline Phylactery, where we can socket one non-unique basic jewel. And we have 100% increased effect of socketed jewels. I don't know if this is all socketed jewels or just the jewel socket here, because that says jewels, and that's one socket, and that's plural. We also have 50% more mana cost if you have no energy shield. Well, some of these things can be offset with stuff like blood magic, although that's very far away on the tree from the witch. But it could be offset with blood magic support gem. Coming on round, we have Eldritch Empowerment, where non-channeling spells cost an additional 3% of maximum energy shield. Well, that's fine if you don't have any energy shield, although a lot of this relies on you having energy shield. There's like this balance of using your different of your mana, your energy shield, or your life on this tree, and I think if you can get the balance in the right way, you're going to be able to make something completely broken. It's going to be around a casting build, a spell build, probably something like Spark. Eldritch Empowerment, anyway, non-channeling spells cost more energy shield, they deal more damage, but spending energy shield does not interrupt recharge, so you can be recharging your shield and just spamming your spells, right? It's only 3% of your maximum energy shield. Coming around here, this is where I think there might be a bit of a mistake to the tree. So starting off, we have cursed enemies killed by you or your allies have a 33% chance to explode, dealing a quarter of their maximum life as chaos damage, which then apparently comes around to Blackened Heart. I don't believe it does. I think this is Dominion over Flesh, this one here that it leads to. You can apply additional curse. You can curse. Your curses can affect hexproof enemies. On the far side of the spiderweb, we come round first off to Necromantic Conduit. You and allies in your presence have Unholy Might while you are not on low mana, but you lose 5% of your mana per second. Unholy Might is a buff that grants you 30% of all damage as extra chaos damage. As we continue to come around, we get some extra mana, and then Dominion... then I believe it should be Blackened Heart here. 4% increased magnitude of Unholy Might buffs you grant per 100 maximum mana. Unholy Might gives us 30% of all damage as extra chaos damage. With Blackened Heart and a mana stacker, you're going to be able to get that Unholy Might buff really, really high. Couple that with some of these other spells like Eldritch Empowerment, and as long as you can balance keeping all of your life, mana, and energy shield up, you're going to be able to do some really crazy damage. Definitely some interesting builds here, but I think they're the sorts of ones where you'd have to sit in Path of Building and work out exactly how you're going to do it. Anyway, they are the 5 new Ascendancies. They are all the information I could find available on what these skills are going to do. I'm really, really excited. Personal favourite, the Amazon looks like it's going to be awesome. That's because it fits in with the playstyle that we were doing with the Ice Strike Monk for me. I'd be really, really pleased, really, really excited to hear what you guys are looking forward to. And yeah, don't forget to maybe give the video a like. It really helps. If you're not subscribed yet, maybe subscribe as well. That'd be awesome. And I will catch you in the next video. Have a good one.